Hi, I'm Blake Bettner, Managing Editor at Worn & Wound, and this is the 2020 Virtual Windup Watch Fair. I recently had the chance to speak with Chace Fancher, founder of Oak & Oscar, about how he designs and manufactures his watches. We're also joined by Nathan Bobinchak, who recently joined the brand as the Director of Watchmaking to discuss the benefits of adding an in-house watchmaker. And now, here's our interview with Chace and Nathan. All right, Oak & Oscar, thank you so much for joining us here at the Virtual Windup Watch Fair. Welcome. So let's start off, maybe you can tell us a little bit about yourself, Chace, and the brand Oak & Oscar for those who aren't familiar.
Sure, absolutely. First of all, thank you for having us here. Definitely appreciate it. And in true spirit of Oak & Oscar, cheers to you, Blake. Cheers to you, Worn & Wound, and the Windup crew. Much appreciated. Cheers. So Oak & Oscar, it's all about the stuff that I love. Oak obviously is the type of wood that bourbon is aged in, and then Oscar is my dog's name. And part of our profits go to a local charity here in Chicago. And it's something where it's very personal. I get to spend time designing, making watches, building this amazing brand that I'm super proud of, spend more time with my dog, more time with my family, and of course, drinking bourbon. So it's been phenomenally fun for me. We create these watches that I'm so proud of, and we have such an amazing group of folks who are part of this community, and I love it. I'm so happy about it.
Yeah, that's awesome. I remember meeting you, I think it was in 2015 at Basel, and one of the things that stuck out to me was the time that you took to describe designing the, I believe it was the 8 and the 7 into the dial. And I know you have a whole process for your designs, and I thought maybe you could kind of talk a little bit about that process and how it sets you apart.
I remember meeting you in the lobby of a hotel. I believe I had just like a 3D printout of the Burnham, my very first watch, with some straps and some packaging ideas, because that's been something that's been a huge focus on our brand, for our brand ever since day one, which is just killer packaging. But yeah, we sat down, we talked, I told you about the 7s and the 8, and the 7, if you want to reference the dial, it has a slash in the middle of it through the stick, and that's just the way I write my 7s. Always have. And it's something I thought was like a really fun personal touch to add to the dial. We also have it on our serial numbers and everywhere else you might find that 7. And then the 8 is a struggle that we've carried throughout our whole entire line of watches with full dials. And it was something that was really fun to find the final design, because we use sandwich dials. And a lot of times the sandwich dial can look like a stencil, like an army military style on the side of a trunk. I didn't want that. That's not who I am. That's not our design. And it took a lot of rounds of design work to get that 8 to look correct, but also to be able to be manufactured correctly. So I think there's something in the order of around 80 hours just on that one number of design work. And that's something that is true for everything that we do. We will design something, we will tweak it, we will make it to the point where we are exceedingly happy with it. It is never a scenario of like, I think that's good. It is a scenario of let's keep pushing until we are 100% happy with it. But then frankly, there's sometimes when we get there, we might take something away. And then at that point, there is this point when that design is done, you feel it. You're like, and that's it, we're good. And that's such a nice feeling to get there.
Yeah, no, that's amazing, and I can imagine the challenges in setting up the manufacturing capacity that you have for being such a young brand. Were there any particular challenges in getting things kind of the way that you want them, where you feel that you can, kind of breathe easy about the design in those first few years?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely such a huge component is the production teams that you work with, and developing a relationship with them and getting them to understand how serious you are about your design and how serious you are about how that small little curve in that number matters, or this case shape, the way it should be, the way it's designed is the way it should be. Especially as a young small company, even today, folks don't necessarily, I don't want to say take you seriously, but they don't want to give you as much time of day as maybe your bigger brands, the brands who are ordering thousands and thousands of watches, or brands who've been with them for 20, 30 years. So it's about proving yourself, developing that relationship with the people who are in Switzerland so that they believe in your message and so that they also want to see you succeed. And it's been something where it's been phenomenally fun for me to build relationships with people and to make sure that together we can push the limits of what's expected of a smaller brand like ours.
And on that note, the Oak and Oscar team has recently gotten a little bit bigger. We're joined by Nathan, the newest member of your team, and he's a watchmaker that you've recently hired. Maybe you can introduce him and tell us about that decision to hire a watchmaker.
I'm extremely excited, and frankly, as a watch nerd, I'm honored. I'm in awe of the fact that we actually have like just like, it's this crazy concept to me, this watchmaker who sits in our shop now who can do all these amazing things. It's like, oh yeah, I can make that. That's not a problem. It's been something that we've wanted from, I'll be honest, not day one, but from like year two. I've been like, you know what? We need a watchmaker. We need someone in-house, not just someone sitting on a bench in Switzerland or wherever it may be. We need someone who's in-house and who is going to be part of the development of a watch from the start to the finish, from the point of when we start designing it to CAD, to all the additional technical drawings, to the point where we're prototyping, putting things together, and he can research and figure out, is that gear working properly? So to keep moving forward on that, Nathan, we've just brought on maybe a month or two ago, and I'm so excited to have him here with us. He is a phenomenally well-trained watchmaker who has so many other talents. Unfortunately, he does like Malort, which is a local liquor here in Chicago that I do judge him by just a little bit. He brought some to the office, and every so often I stare at it and I wonder what the hell it's doing here. But anyway, no. So we're super excited to have Nathan here, and I can let him kind of fill in a little bit more about his background and where he fits here with Oak and Oscar.
Yeah, sure. So I am a certified watchmaker. I was trained at a watchmaking school. I actually used to be a journalist. I was a TV news writer for several years here in Chicago. And then I was looking for how to get into basically watch journalism. And I realized that at least one writer had gone to watchmaking school before getting into the business. And I was like, oh, you can just do that? And the answer is you can just do that. There are some watchmaking schools here in the United States. And that's not to say it's easy. They're pretty exclusive and it's very, very difficult and rigorous. But I went to the Lidditz Watch Technicum near Lancaster, Pennsylvania. That's a school that's underwritten by Rolex, but it's an independent curriculum that teaches foundational ideas about watchmaking, teaches you to make things. You start with making your tools, you make a clock, you make a watch. You learn to service all kinds of different movements, traditional hand-wound movements, more complicated ones like automatics with calendars and chronographs, all that. So we were given a very traditional education. And then after that, I worked as a bench watchmaker in the New York area. And now I'm back in Chicago, bringing the watchmaking back to the Midwest. And it's great to be here with Oak and Oscar and expanding even beyond kind of what I thought I'd ever do. When you come out of school, there's a lot of watchmaking to be done, and a lot of it is repairing. There's a lot of watches that need to be fixed. But being on the inside and being able to make watches and think about how they're designed and how they're going to be done going forward is such an exciting part of it for me. when I say I'm a watchmaker, everyone's always like, "Oh, so you make watches?" And it's like, well, no, that's a catch-all term for people that work on watches. But now I can say, yeah, I mean, we make watches. So it's really great to be a part of the team and to be looking at some really fascinating stuff for the future.
No, that's fantastic. And what does it mean for your customers to have Nathan on board? And what does it mean for the future of Oak and Oscar watches to have Nathan on board?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. My quick answer to that is very frank. It's legitimacy. We have a phenomenal watchmaker on board who is going to be part of the process from start to finish. We've always had a fantastic team of very knowledgeable people out in Switzerland to help with production, and they're still there. But now what we have is an in-house expert who it speaks their language, if you will, and I'm excited to have that. And I'll kick it back to Nathan here. He's got a great perspective of what it means for our owners as well.
Yeah, so I think that when you look at smaller brands, we are an independent brand. We don't like to be a micro brand, right? And one of the things that distinguishes that for me is that we intend to be around. We intend to have watches that will be repaired and reworn for as long as you want to wear that watch. You can pass that watch down. These watches aren't just something that you buy and if it breaks and it's not worth it and all that. We are coming at this from a perspective of durability, serviceability. I love coming into Oak and Oscar from a bench watchmaking position where I saw a lot of different kinds of watches, and not all of them are made in the same way where they can come apart and go back together without it being a total nightmare or using glues and stuff that is kind of one-time use. All of our timepieces are made to be fixed. They're made to be restored. They're made to kind of go with you and stay with you. And so I think that that's an important message for our owners. If you pick up a watch from Oak and Oscar, it's not just going to get tossed into a drawer in a couple of years. It's going to stay with you. And if it has any trouble, I'm going to crack it open and I'm going to fix it.
No, and to Nathan's point, there's one example that I like to show is for example, the Humboldt 12-hour. That bezel insert is held in mechanically, similar to one of the big brands. Let's just say that it's held in mechanically. It's not done by adhesive. It's a pressure fit insert compared to a lot of other brands. And this is not a negative per se. They frankly use double-sided sticky tape to hold their inserts in. And when I learned that, like when that veil was lifted for me, when I was devising and designing the Humboldt, I was shocked that some major brands use double-sided sticky tape for their bezel inserts. And that's just not the way that it doesn't feel right to me. So we went and pushed and made sure that our inserts were actually held in through a pressure fit system.
No, that's really cool. And I wanted to, you mentioned what this means to your customers, and I know that you take a pretty unique approach to your customers and customer service. You've got programs like the batch program and annual meetups. Maybe tell us a little bit more about what that means to you to engage with your buyers and customers like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the key things is we don't call them customers, we call them owners. Because for me, it's about being part of the company. It's about being part of the process. When somebody comes to pick up a watch or curbside, given today, and the idea is they're celebrating a promotion or an engagement or a birth of a kid, that's something to me that is so personal and so amazing. And the honor and respect that they kind of bestow on Oak and Oscar, I can only give that back in spades, and that's why I love the idea that what we are is kind of like a club, a family. It's a community, and I love that about Oak and Oscar, and that's one of the things that I wanted to create from day one, because I always thought to myself, how would I want to be treated? And I'd want to be treated like someone who's kind of on the inside, someone who can get into that speakeasy, if you will. And that is exactly where, for example, the batch series came from, which is something we don't normally talk about much. But there are watches that are made only for our owners, and essentially they're buddies, they're watch guys, they're drinking friends, they're best friends, their community. And for example, we did a batch number 1, which was a white dial no date chronograph. And we sent it out only to our owners. And it was a phenomenally nerve-wracking, but super fun, and everyone loved it. And they sold out pretty quickly, which I was very happy about, and honored to see that folks kind of got that and understood. And other things that we do that you mentioned are owners-only weekends, where we normally have it right around now, where we just invite everyone out from the country, from the world, into Chicago, and we do fun events. Last year, in 2019, we actually did a great whiskey tasting and barrel pick over at Few Distillery, which is here in the Chicago area. We had 25, 30 different owners who came in Friday, and we sat with the owner of Few and tasted 3 different barrels and picked them. We picked our favorite one, and we bottled it up and had a great time. We took a trolley bus back into the HQ, and then the next day there was about 50 or 60 people. We all had barbecue and a jazz band here at the HQ, and it's just fun. It's an amazing thing also to see our community of owners grow, but then also individually become closer. So we've got folks who've met each other through Oak and Oscar, and now they call themselves friends, and that to me is just as important as the watches. And I love that. It makes me so proud.
All right, guys, to cap things off, maybe tell us a little bit more about the Olmsted Mat.
Sure. This is a watch that I think is a really fun play on cool materials. It's the Olmsted with ceramic coating and no date. It's something that has this really wonderful tactile feel to it. It's a piece where we get to really take our time and make sure that the ceramic coating is done right, and we get to have fun with a new material on a watch that has become somewhat of a classic for Oak and Oscar. And add on to that, we're throwing in or taking out the fact that there's not a date on this piece. And it's one of our only watches to have a no date design. And it's something that we're excited about because we know there's a lot of folks out there who really appreciate not knowing what day it is.
Yeah, I think what's cool about the Olmsted mat is that the Olmsted is already such a organic shape that kind of disappears onto your wrist. You know, it's not too thick, it's not too big. It fits really nicely on your wrist. And the mat series, it just even goes a little bit further. It's a very personal watch. It kind of blends into what you're wearing and what you're doing, and it's a very personal timepiece in that regard, right? It's not shiny. It's not gonna draw attention to itself. It's a watch for you. And in that way, it's like, that makes it the ultimate tool watch, right? It tells you what time it is, and it gets out of your way besides that. And it also looks really cool. So yeah, I've been wearing one. I can't take it off my wrist. I've been looking forward to being able to talk about it because it's just so cool. It's really fun to have.
Yeah, and it's been really fun to figure out how to do this ceramic coating properly, because there's the easy way to do it, and then there's the right way to do it. And we've gone from as far as creating hundreds of metal dummy covers just for the coating process to make sure that it's done right. And it's been its own challenge, both fun and frustrating, but it's something where, again, if we're gonna do it, we're gonna do it right.
Well, Chace, Nathan, I really appreciate you guys taking the time to come on and talk with us and being a part of the Virtual Windup Watch Fair. It really means a lot, and cheers to the future, guys.
Cheers, absolutely.